Okay, so this slide is about our important takeaways, stuff that we think was very important and that kind of stood out to us and really kind of was an eye opener whenever we were reading. So this first quote, it is not the mere presence of black people that is the problem. Rather, it is blackness with ambition, with drive, with purpose, with aspirations, and with demands for full and equal citizenship. Anderson, 2016, page 3. And what I kind of take away from this is that it's really kind of insane to think about how much racism and oppression are still prevalent today, but just in a different way. And one of the later quotes will talk about that in more depth. But the book kind of explains later that how the narrative of black poverty kind of sees blacks as devaluing education and ambition and hard work. And so the author points out that even African Americans believe that these narratives that are pushed on them, and this further kind of divides the people in kind of the way that we don't see every day, and that these people are more divided, and African Americans are viewed as less hardworking, don't have a good education, and that kind of stuff because these narratives are pushed on them. But the next quote is talking about black children, and it says, by contrast, an entire generation of black children who had fought long and hard to receive a quality education was now forced to face this cold, hard, new economy with neither the necessary education nor work skills. Anderson, 2016, page 86. And this quote kind of stood out because it shows how down to even the county in that specific page talks about the counties themselves and the kind of stuff that they do to kind of devalue African Americans, kind of push them down, but that black people have fewer opportunities than just the white man. And so the author describes how this tactic left people without education and skills to work in the economy at the time. And the country's economy was even at risk, all to keep the African American down. So it was super interesting to kind of read up on that and kind of see how systemic this really is and how it really pushes away from the narrative that racism is rather not individual, but a systemic thing. And people, this is embedded in our society through all of history in the United States. So that was really, really interesting to read about, and that quote really stood out to me. But this final quote talks about the Ku Klux Klan and kind of like how racism is now a final kind of like thing rather than actually looking at it as an actual issue. So this quote says, the focus on the Klan also helped to designate racism as an individual aberration rather than something systemic, institutional, and pervasive. Anderson, 2016, page 100. And this quote really stood out to me because it astounded me, because the way we think about racism now, especially as an individual thing, and only one person can be racist, it's not more of the institutional stuff, and being embedded in schools, in the police force, in the government. We see it as an individual, and the way people act is, oh, I'm going to be racist towards you. That's racism. So that was really interesting to read up. And we don't see it as institutional or systemic in any way, especially now. And their plan worked, and the average person fails to see, how embedded this is in our society and how much work and effort it's going to take to really realize that we don't need to see it as an individual thing, and really understand that this is systemic, and that everywhere and in all history that we have tried to push down the African American man, and it comes with taking that responsibility to understand where we need to go from here. So these quotes are really interesting to read up on, and they really stood out to me.